In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to model the columns so that they can be exported correctly out of Revit using Dynamo. The first thing that you will need to do is ensure that the base level columns is the active work set when modeling the primary steel columns that will have pin boundary conditions at the base. To do that, at the bottom of your screen, change your work set to base level columns. Click on the column to ensure that the base level columns work set is assigned to all the columns that will have boundary conditions. When modeling the primary steel columns, ensure that the columns work set is the active work set. Click the drop down arrow at the bottom of your screen and select columns. Note that miscellaneous steel columns do not go on this work set. In this elevation, you can see that all these columns are associated to the columns work set. When modeling the steel columns, ensure that you define how many stories the column is under the 1, 2, or 3 story column parameter under Other in the Properties browser. Please note that the column can be more than 3 stories. Take a look at this figure for more information. This column is a 1-story column because it spans between level 1 and 2. This column is a 2-story column that spans between level 3 and level 1. This is an example of a 3-story column, and so forth. In this model, this is a 2-story column. Scroll down in the project browser and ensure that in the 1, 2, or 3-story column parameter is set to 2. Similarly, make sure that this parameter is also set to 2. Let's open up the 3D view to make sure that all the columns are on the correct work set that we want exported. Let's first view all the base level columns. When these columns get read into Etabs, there will be pinned boundary conditions assigned to the base of each column with the appropriate offset. This column is offset 2 feet below level 1. When it comes into Etabs, it'll have a pinned boundary condition at the base, and it'll also be offset 2 feet from level 1. Let's take a look at the columns above the base level columns. Let's recap of what needs to occur to ensure that your columns will be exported correctly out of Revit using Dynamo. You must ensure that the base level columns work set is the active work set when modeling the primary steel columns that will have a pin boundary condition at the base. Note that miscellaneous steel columns do not go on this work set. You also need to ensure that the columns work set is the active work set when modeling the primary steel columns that do not have boundary conditions at the base. Similarly, miscellaneous steel columns do not go on the columns work set. When modeling the steel columns, ensure that you define how many stories the column is under the 1, 2, or 3-story column parameter under Other in the Properties browser. Note that the column can be more than 3 stories. Note that a mezzanine level will increase the story number by 1 if a mezzanine occurs between any of your floors.